speaker who is our keynote. I'm going to change hats for this for a certain reason. Maybe I don't have it on backwards. It's hard to tell on the screen. Anyway, we all have those teachers in our lives that we remember, even those that we may have had a positive effect on us during our youthful years. Well, I can say without hesitation that our next speaker, Mr. DuMont, has had one powerfully positive effect on me, even in this so-called twilight of my life. Yes, he has been an important part of my acting career as a mentor, but more importantly, he offers his life philosophies to all his students that are fortunate enough to work with him. And this helps me in my medical career for sure. I am lucky to have him so close here in New Orleans. Mr. DuMont has more than 30 years of experience in acting and over 150 major film and television credits. Films include Spencer Confidential, Trumbo, Dallas Buyers Club, Jurassic World, Catch Me If You Can. His television credits include The Righteous Gemstones that I believe he's filming now with his son, I think, Blue Bloods, Magnum PI, The Good Fight, and American Horror Story. He currently coaches over 200 actors on Zoom from as far away as Italy to San Francisco and Maine to Florida. He is a tri-coastal actor and residing in New Orleans, New York, and Los Angeles all at once, and he shows no signs of slowing down anytime soon. He's always on to new projects. James has offered his spare time in offering his presentation entitled The Story of You: How to Unlock a Greater Sense of Self, Manage Stress, and Thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, my coach, friend, and superb actor, James DuMont. James, if you want to come on screen with us and unmute yourself, or are we having any issues? Brian, can you turn anything on? There he is. Unmute yourself, sir.
Yes.
Now let's start over. Now you got it. Good, man. How are you doing?
I was going to say Wild Bill Harris with the earlier cowboy hat, but now we've gone into a different. G'day, mate. You know, like you got a nice little bowler hat going on. I appreciate that.
Well, it's another character that you've helped train me for. So
this is true.
That. And thanks for joining us in your hugely busy schedule today.
No, it's good. This is an interesting time. My son is, as you mentioned, my son is in Kirtley in Charleston, South Carolina. He plays Pontius Gemstone on the Righteous Gemstones, Danny McBride series, John Goodman's grandson. And he's doing 7 out of 9 season 2, and I'm going to do, looks like now 5 out of 9 episodes this season. I don't start till June. But yes, so my wife and my son are away. It's just me and the dog. I was like, wait a minute. So talk about walking a dog. As soon as we're done, we're going to go take care of the dog. But thank you, William, for that lovely introduction. I want to just start out by, I know this is an odd thing for an actor to be kind of talking to perfusionists about how there might be tie-ins between being a perfusionist and some of the skills in which that I've had to use and encounter. But so I'll just present as much as I can and let you guys decide what you find to be most applicable to you. But one of the biggest things is, as Bill had mentioned, I've been doing this for about 40 years and about 150 movies and television shows. And I've probably done about 10,000 auditions, at least, probably maybe 20 to 30,000. That's a lot of job interviews. And in the time period, one of the two things that I think two stories that I think are really kind of applicable to kind of bring into what I want to really talk about today is unlocking the story of you, and why that may or may not seem like an important thing in terms of what you do. I do think it's important for us to be present, and for us to be able to be great listeners. And, we're in a world where we have much distraction. There's an immediacy to information. We're being bombarded all the time, emotionally being pulled in many different directions. And I think the key to that is really being present and being able to assess and evaluate, as we used to say when we were doing auditions live, come in and read the room. Because, I'm out in the lobby and there's things that are going on in this room that I'm not aware of, but I have to come in with an intended result. And I think the most important thing always is looking for the best or the greatest outcomes. And I think that's where we have a lot of things in common. And there may be things that unbeknownst to us that we're walking into these rooms, we don't know what the energy is. And I think sometimes we come in and we have to kind of handle certain situations and be ready to adjust. And I think that has to do with really being present, really being available, and being able to listen. And I think listening is it actually is the hardest thing in all of acting, to be quite honest. Saying the lines and creating characters are actually very, very easy for someone like myself. But man, listening is extremely difficult. And so there are a few things that I'm going to kind of talk about today that really kind of strengthen and highlight ways in which to be present, ways in which to assess and evaluate a current situation and kind of the energies that are there. But more importantly is to make sure that that we're not bringing in, as we used to say in acting, it's like, the actor's job is to come and solve the problem. They're trying to find this particular character for this story. And so the actor's job is to really solve the problem. So you're the solution to the problem, but you shouldn't bring in more problems. Come in and solve the problem. Don't bring in your problems. And the stress and strain of having, no job security and maybe doing, 5,000 or 100, 100 auditions in a given year and maybe have 5 to 10 jobs can kind of wane on you a little bit in terms of your contribution. But I think it's a matter of really staying present and focused and being able to learn and watch clearly read the room, as we like to say, read the room. So 2 stories that I think I want to start out with that kind of like bring me into all the things that I want to discuss today. One is, there was an opportunity. One time I was doing a film in Louisiana with Eva Longoria and Billy Bob Thornton, a movie called Baytown Outlaws. Fun little movie, kind of like it's like a Southern pulp fiction, good old boy Southern fiction, pulp fiction. And the way the shot was set up was that there was a cinematographer on a crane that was 50 feet up in the air, and he had what's called a Steadicam, which is a kind of camera that makes it look like a human being is kind of watching. And the idea is that this director wanted to have this all done in one shot. So this 40-foot crane is set up, out in Lafayette, Louisiana. I think we were in Hammond, Louisiana. And the idea is that you can see at a distance this police car coming all the way up the road. You can see the dust and the gravel, and they had spent, I don't know, I was sitting in a trailer, a mud around me trailer for about 6-8 hours. They had spent all this time to set this shot up. And the idea is that he'd be at the top of the crane would come down, someone would unlock the harness so he would be safe. And then the camera operator would then step off the crane and then follow behind me on my shoulder. We would turn around, say our few lines, and then the camera would then get behind me and go all the way in for one shot and end it with the person in an ambulance. So this is a shot way at a distance that they spent 6 to 8 hours, choreographing and working out. And then it's my job to kind of come in and make, I have, 3-4 lines with an actor from Vampire Diaries. So they had spent, a good half of the day getting this shot together. And sometimes I liken what I do to being these days, I liken to what I do being a closer in baseball. For those who are baseball fans, the closer is the pitcher that comes in at the 8th or the 9th inning, and whatever the score is, we want to make sure that we close this game out. So there is a great deal of stress and pressure put on because, if they're spending 6-8 hours, some people are making $300, $500 an hour, to set this whole shot up. And we want to get it all right. So, and all done in one shot. There's no internal cuts. That's the whole point of it, because it's the last shot of the movie. So they spent all this time. I'm called out to the thing. I get there. I walk up. Everything's going well. Crane comes down. They unstrap the camera guy. He comes around. We say our guy passes me. We say our lines. Camera switches around over my shoulder into the ambulance. Boom, done. One shot. Everybody's looking around. And the director's like, that was perfect. That was fantastic. It's like, and I go, well, that's why you call me. I've been doing this a long time. it's all up to me. I can't let everybody down here, you know? And so he said, okay, well, let's do it. Let's do another one just so we have another one, you know? And the point is, and then more recently, I'm recurring on a show called City on a Hill on Showtime. The Kevin Spacey is not Kevin Spacey. We don't talk about Kevin Spacey anymore, but no, Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon was also directing the episode. And because of COVID, this was a remote location where they not just spending 6 to 8 hours, they had spent multiple days having to lock the location up and cleaning and making it very safe. And so what ends up happening is, you know, got at 5 o'clock in the morning, same situation. They clear out the entire set, the director and the other actor and myself. We do one little rehearsal around 6 o'clock or so. We start shooting around 7 o'clock. We do 3 different camera setups, 1 to 2 takes each. By 8 o'clock, they're done. They had spent days, weeks, months delaying it. Even we were supposed to work in 2020, we moved it into the next year. And then to be able to come in and really kind of deliver in a crucial kind of moment, because time is money. And all the kind of risks and liabilities of putting more and more people on set. So I was really able to kind of, you know, for all that work, all my work was within a half hour, but there were many, many people that spent a lot of time to do that. And so why I bring those 2 stories up is that, and you guys can decide how much that is applicable to the work that you guys do. But I feel like, you know, having that kind of preparation, being able to, the key things in terms of my work, I always say to actors, and I think this is a key thing for anyone now, is I call it the Holy Trinity, which is relaxation, focus, and concentration. And being able to increase your ability to relax, to focus, and to concentrate will always, in my experience, of 150 sets and, you know, and thousands of auditions, and now, you know, teaching for well over, you know, 20, 30,000 hours, is relaxation, focus, and concentration. Anything you can do in your everyday life to increase your ability to relax, to focus, and concentrate will always lead to a positive outcome at some point in time. And when there is so much at stake, as you guys, you know, what you encounter is, you know, people's lives are at stake. So the ability for you to stay relaxed, focused, and concentrated at crucial moments, making sure that you listen and assess the situation. These are same skill sets that I use every day in terms of my teaching, and then in terms of the auditions that I do every day. So a few things, there's a great technique that we have in acting called the Meisner repetition exercise. And the repetition exercise or game was developed by Sanford Meisner, who is a renowned acting teacher at the Neighborhood Playhouse. You can look up his work. And what he did is he actively trains actors to be active listeners and to pay attention to their stage partners. Repetition is the foundation exercise of practical aesthetics, which is an approach to acting that was developed by playwright David Mamet, who is also a well-renowned director and writer, a screenwriter, and W.H. Macy, which most of us know from Fargo or from the TV show Shameless. And traditionally, actors, shocking, you'll be shocked to hear, traditionally, actors do not listen well to each other. They rehearse a scene in the same way throughout an entire rehearsal process, so they know what's coming next. This means that their skill must be in pretending to respond truthfully to something that they've heard hundreds of times. Repetition of information sometimes gives us a complacency to, yeah, I know that already, but still people need to be acknowledged and people need to be heard, and you still need to be present. And so that's where this exercise comes in. Sooner or later, your performance will degrade over time because you stop to listen, working either on film or television. The point and the purpose is to remain spontaneous, night for night, performance for performance. Meisner's view is that the practitioners of practical aesthetics, actors, should listen and should not set their performances in stone. In the words of Mike Alford, they should be different every night. If your performance is truly spontaneous and immediate, meaning based on what is happening here and now, rather than copying what has happened or been rehearsed before, then you must learn to work off the other actor and doing this in the moment. So repetition helps you build the skills to deal with this new spontaneous and immediate style of performance. Repetition is very simple. I'm going to tell you the way the exercise works. Two actors will sit in a chair opposite one another, and they will look straight across from each other. Now, mostly now because of COVID, people have been doing this in Zoom. It's been a little bit more difficult, but I think I've been finding Zoom to be actually quite intimate and impactful in terms of people's focus and concentration in terms of the work. But repetition helps you to build this skill of being spontaneous. Repetition is simple. Two actors will sit across from one another. They will look straight at each other and say something truthful about the other person. Now, this is something that people can do at any particular point in time. It doesn't have to be actors, but the idea is the purpose is to stay present and available. So what you do is you say something truthful about the other person, and then that person repeats from their perspective and continues to repeat what you hear until something happens that make you change it. For example, one person may look at another person and say, "You're unsure." And the other person will repeat and say, "I'm unsure. You're unsure. I'm unsure. You're unsure. I'm unsure. You're unsure." The idea is to repeat it in order to really hear it, in order to listen it, and to stay present. There's no need to do anything. There's no need to change what you say or how you say it, unless you see something. If you see something, say something. Sound familiar? Unless you see something that new that occurs, this keeps you present and focused in the moment. Simply put, if you see the person fidgeting, biting their lip, you may believe that they are nervous. Then say it and continue to repeat it until one of them has something new that occurs. For example, "You're unsure. I'm unsure. You're unsure. I'm unsure." You see them biting their lip. "You're nervous. I'm nervous. You're nervous. I'm nervous. You're nervous." You hear them go, "Ugh, you made a mistake. I made a mistake." And they go red. "Ooh, you're embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. You're embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. You're embarrassed." As David Mamet says, invent nothing, deny nothing. This means that you do not need to change anything on purpose, but you need to see a change in your repetition partner. Then say it, don't deny it. Remember, it's invent nothing, deny nothing. There are 3 rules to this repetition. 1, to tell the truth. 2, if in doubt, repeat. Don't think, just repeat. Stay in the moment, stay present. And 3, don't stop playing the game. Keep playing it until you get it right, get it wrong, completely mess it up. Or if a herd of gazelles tramples through the classroom, keep going. Place your focus on your partner and play the game until you're told to stop. You must allow yourself to be influenced by the other actor and inadvertently at this stage influence their behavior without attempting to do so. This game has no winner. It is not a competition. When you make a mistake or get stuck for words, just attempt to keep going. Your worst mistakes are gifts to your fellow repetition partner and will keep the game going. Simply saying that what you see, say what you see, regardless of social politeness. Meisner used to say, forget being polite. He actually said a different word, but he said, forget being polite. He was a big swear word person like myself. He doesn't mean to be maroon. He simply means that if you are an actor, you must be open to live truthfully. This is the way we work as actors. Living truthfully under imaginary circumstances and scenarios. For this reason, the actor must be unrestricted by social niceties in order to prepare for this. It's not about being mean to each other. It's about being open enough to each other to see it and to respond it. Now that kind of ties into another thing, another concept that I think is extremely important, that helps to kind of unlock being present and available and maximizing what you have to offer. And it's a concept that is a psychological concept called mirroring. And this kind of really is a kind of a bridge from the repetition exercise of being present and listening, not setting a result, but really being there, present and listening and assessing what's going on. And it's called, it comes from Heinz Kohut, who was a therapist who had the concept of mirroring. I want to talk about that a little bit, because I think being able to mirror or match people in the moment and in certain situations is very important. To be properly mirrored, to be properly seen and heard. If you are not being properly mirrored early on or consistently, it is hard to find the right mirror for you to properly see oneself. This concept comes from Heinz Kohut, to be properly mirrored. Now, this is where things get a little bit kind of deep in terms of the work that we do as actors or as human beings in general. If you are not being properly mirrored early on in life, then you are constantly for wanting, needing love, attention, approval. Then you get into what we call compensatory behaviors. Examples are various addictions: sex, drugs, alcohol, overeating, makeup behaviors, such as shouting, constant need for attention, or overcompensating. I am therefore not internalizing the acceptance of who I am. The good behavior I have done thus far, it has not been met, matched, or mirrored. I won't even see it in myself. If someone didn't see me as I am, how am I going to learn to see it myself? Until I meet the somebodies or the someones to see me as I am: the teacher, the coach, the therapist, the priest, the mentor, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the husband, the wife, the brother, the sister, the grandparents. The potential to undervalue yourself is immense and always there at many steps along the way in your life. To look and take great care and to look and to take a great deal of courage and intelligence. It takes a great deal of courage and intelligence to arrive where I am at without having been properly mirrored or matched. So you need to remind yourself that. Mirroring is a type of psychological transference where others serve as a mirror that reflect back a sense of self-worth and value. Just as people use a mirror to check appearances, mirroring transference involves the use of affirming and positive responses to others to see positive traits within oneself. Mirroring is a really, it's kind of a key thing, because what ends up happening, I call them emotional, we all have emotional potholes in our life. Certain moments in our life, there are people that have not mirrored or matched what we have needed and wanted at crucial moments. And what happens is, if that's not mirrored, met, or matched, then we do find ourselves getting into compensatory behaviors of sex, drugs, alcohol, overeating, overcompensating, inflated egos, overreaction, what I call, I had a reaction. There was a great word for reaction. But my point is that we need to make sure that we're taking care of and addressing these unresolved emotional potholes. So one of the most interesting things that came about in the last year that I've been teaching on Zoom, and mind you, I've been an actor for 40 years, and I just started teaching around 5 years ago, and I always thought, oh yeah, people, teachers are people that can't do it, so that's why they teach. And so I had such a derogatory thing when I've had such amazing teachers. I've studied with Sanford Meisner. I've studied with a man named Larry Moss, and Bill and I have both studied with Larry and a guy named Tim Phillips. But this last year in COVID during COVID has unlocked so many incredible things. And one of which was this thing that came my way from a woman named Lisa Greenfield, who is she's a palmist. She reads your palm and does tarot and also does astrology as well. And, that was more my dad's thing in the 70s. And I was like, yeah, okay. But there was interesting information that came out. And one of the things that she proposed to put together is called the 30-day compliment challenge. And I would welcome you guys to look and explore this, because I had no idea whatsoever that what could be seemingly this cute little hashtag trite 30-day compliment challenge, how deep and profound and interesting it was to resolve and to forgive and to move on from these the lack of mirroring and matching that happened in certain moments. So the way the 30-day compliment challenge works is this. For a 30-day period of time, I'd like for you to, if you so choose, to give yourself 30 compliments. And so each day in the mirror, and it's good to do it in your mirror while you're brushing your teeth, because hopefully you brush your teeth at least once a day, maybe twice, hopefully. And so the ritual of doing it, you won't forget if you're brushing your teeth. So we call it, it's like toothbrush love. We call it toothbrush love. So each day for a 30-day period of time, I put them on pieces of paper. You give yourself a compliment, and you put it and phrase it this way. You are, and then put in that word. And each day you look in the mirror and you say, like, for example, I'm looking at I have the last 15 days. The first 15 days are my apartment in New York. The last 15 are here in my studio in New Orleans. So day 16 of 30 is you are amazing. So you look in the mirror, you're brushing your teeth, and you go, you are amazing. Repeat it, you are amazing. And then own it, feel it, take that in. Next one I had is you are fearless. You are fearless. Own it, believe it, commit to it. You are awesome. You are inspiring. You are resilient. You are remarkable. You are unstoppable. You are undaunted. You are talented. You are brilliant. You are one of a kind. You are tremendous. You are unforgettable. You are funny. You're going to be okay. Was my 30th. You're going to be okay. And why I bring this up and why it's important is we all have had moments, and you're giving this compliment to yourself because someone at some point in time in your life did not give you this compliment. They did not mirror you or match you or acknowledge you or hear you or listen to you. And when you give yourself this compliment, you have to forgive that person. We ask you to forgive that person. Because if you give yourself that compliment, then you can close that chapter. You can't keep walking around asking someone to validate what I think is probably the most profound one of all the 30 that I did. You are enough. Take that in for a second. You are enough as you are, period. You're enough. You don't have to overcompensate. You don't have to have more money. You don't have to be overly educated. You don't have to show off. You are enough as you are. And so of these 30-day compliment challenges, you're giving yourself a challenge. You're giving yourself a compliment that someone did not give you. So you give it to yourself for the day, just that one day. It doesn't get to be too crazy, not too egocentric. Just take it in. But you'll start to realize that there's someone, if you really go deep and you really look closely, that compliment is because someone did not say something to you at a crucial moment. And why that's important is if you need to resolve those issues. You can't bring, as I said before, that you're coming in and solving the problem. Don't bring in more problems. Because you bringing in those problems or something that happened before you came into the room, or as we say, enacting the moment before, you bring in those problems, you're not hearing, you're not listening, because you're still working what happened before. You're not present, and someone's life can be at stake. No one's life's at stake when I'm going into these rooms. So that's the best part about what I do. I'm just creating a human being. But my job, as I see it, is to make sure that I'm unblocking what I would be emotional blocks in order to be able to really hear and to really listen and to really do that repetition of the person in the room, is to be present and to read the room. Another really great challenge that I recommend to you is to unlock your kind of emotional life, because I know probably in the medical field, emotion is probably frowned upon, because perhaps the emotion would be able to cloud your ability to be able to discern and make important decisions, perhaps. But I believe emotion creates reality. Your emotions are very, very real, as we found out in this last year. People's emotions are quite real. And so one way to kind of open up and unlock emotions is, in my acting world, for audition preparation, I usually kind of focus on 4 basic emotions. It's happy, sad, angry, or scared. Those are my 4 basics. But I broke them down into 10 different emotions. And in the 10 different emotions, I have positive emotions and negative emotions. So the positive emotions are love. Some could say love is not an emotion, but I beg to differ. Joy, happiness, hope, and surprise. So love, joy, happiness, hope, and surprise are 5 positive emotions. 5 negative emotions are anger, fear, disgust, sadness, and loneliness. Why these are important are another challenge, if you so choose, is my new challenge now, because I like to challenge myself. I don't like to rest on any particular laurels. Usually these days, I'm as valid and as important as my next job. I've already done this job. I already got this job. So I already have many, many jobs, but I'm only as good as my next job, or at least somebody perceives me as such. So the next challenge we're doing is called the 10-10-10 challenge. Again, it comes from my dear friend, Lisa Greenfield, who I strongly recommend to look up. Her company is called Truth in Hand. And there's something quite interesting about how your hand or your fingerprints are almost like a deep telling of what is really kind of here is here. It's very interesting. I never quite believed it before, but then when I started to work with her on a quarterly basis, and she kind of helped to guide me in certain directions, saying, oh, these are the energies that are going on. Just be aware of this. Make sure you give yourself some rest. She scared me a little bit on January 6th of 2020 when I was in Los Angeles for the Golden Globe Awards, as just going to parties. I wasn't a guest at the Golden Globes, but she read my palm and said, be very careful. Be very careful with your traveling. There's something going around the world, and it is very, very devastating. January 6th, 2020. There's no way that she was following the pandemic. Be careful if you're traveling, watch your health. But there's something going down that's going to be quite devastating to the world. And I go, what, like 9/11? She said, no, it'll be far more devastating and catastrophic than 9/11. It'll change the economic system. This is January 6th, 2020. And I go, this is nuts. I get on a plane from Los Angeles. I'm going Southwest because I'm flying myself. Sat next to a couple who just came back. They're from Louisiana. They just came back from a cruise in San Francisco, first week of January 2020. I come home and I am sick. I never coughed this much in my entire life. I've lost sense of smell. I've lost sense of taste. This is January 6, 2020, with a couple coming off a cruise in San Francisco. If you followed the virus, there were some early cases from people coming off cruises in the first quarter of the year. So I bring that up because I go, little did I know, and I ended up in like 3-4 more flights. And luckily for me, I did not get COVID. It was quite surprising. There was no traces of it 6 months later, though, when I got tested. So the point is that, this next challenge is called the 10-10-10 challenge. So what I'd like you to do for 10 minutes a day, or you can do one a day, or, over a 10-day period of time. Pick one of these emotions of love, joy, happiness, hope, and surprise, or anger, fear, disgust, and sadness, and sit with that one emotion for a 10-minute period of time. Just sit with it. Turn the phone off, computer off, TV, just sit for a moment and think about what's the first person or situation that comes to mind when you think of love. Who's the first? What's the story? What do they look like? Who's the first person you think of joy? When it comes to anger, what is the situation? What is the moment in time? And you'll find that some of this 30-day compliment challenge and some of these 10 emotions are connected to each other. There are traumas or situations in our lives that have been unresolved that are connected to these emotions and connected to the lack of mirroring. But the 10-10-10 challenge is interesting because we don't really take 10 minutes out to kind of check in where we are emotionally. No one really asks us to do it. And we have tons of distractions. We have many ways to just, bide our time. But I think it's important to check in where we're at emotionally. And because my job as I see it is to kind of move aside and put aside the kind of emotional blocks that prohibit people from reaching their potential and from what I seemingly can be the most positive and best outcome. And that's, I think, what we always are endeavor in any particular thing that we pursue is the best and greatest outcome, and making sure that we don't do or say anything that prohibits or blocks our ability from being able to live up to that. I have a 17-year-old son who puts tremendous amount of pressure on himself to the point where it's kind of ridiculous. He's pulling a 4.0 at the Jesuit high school, which is one of the most 170-year-old Jesuit educated school in the South. He's also in another high school. It's a performing arts magnet. That's one of the biggest feeder schools for Juilliard. And he's also working on a television series, and he does boxing, 2-3 times a week. And he's like, I'm not living up to my potential. I'm like, Dad, and I go, hey, son, relax, you're 17. All your friends are vaping and have drunken parents, and they're just, they're asleep at the wheel and they're not paying attention. And you're doing fine, kid. You know what I mean? You're doing just fine. But I think what's happened is, we get ahead of ourselves, and very, very often we're not present or in the moment. And I think when you sit down for a 10-minute period of time and just allow yourself to go into and immerse yourself into, what that one emotion is, it's really quite amazing. When I think of when the word joy comes to mind, I had a great aunt Edie in Midwest, and she couldn't whistle. So she would make casseroles, and she had like a candy drawer, and you know what I mean? And she smelled of white shoulders. And every single time that I would go to her house, it was just this, her hand was very soft, and she was old. And she would hold your hand, and it was the softest thing ever, the smell of her. And she would make these lovely kind of Midwestern casseroles with, beans or whatever. And we just hated beans, but man, she made it, and that casserole was fantastic. So it's like, do you see how quickly we can assess and get to our emotional life? And our emotional life is important. I think we're being, these days, I have a big problem now of the word, the false branding of social distancing. It's not social distancing. We don't need social distancing. We need physical distance from each other in terms of safety, but we don't need to be socially distant. Socially distance has got us to where we are right now. So I'm really of the belief is that it's through the social using this social distancing, we've distanced each other, that we don't think that other person has any of these anger, fear, disgust, sadness, loneliness, love, joy, happiness, and surprise. Every single human being feels these emotions. may repress them, may have to subjugate them in order to do what they need to do. But we forget how much that we've socially distanced from each other. So we need to physically distance, but we need to be socially connected to one another. And for me, the way in which that we connect is that emotion creates a sense of a reality. It's when people's emotions have gotten out of control, or we don't acknowledge that the other person has a right to their particular emotion. But if we're in touch with our own emotions, 9 times out of 10, we're not projecting other things onto other people. So I say stay present, focus on your emotional life. It is valuable, it is important. And these compliments, I know it sounds silly, but man, when you start to sit down and give yourself a compliment each day in the mirror, either in the beginning of the day or at the end, you will be quite surprised how a sense of relief, because what that means is you have to forgive that person for not giving you the compliment. And it means you have to let that go. And sometimes it's hard for us to let go to traumas and to things that we have left unresolved or that we don't want to deal with. But there's something really deeply profound in being able to forgive someone. They may not even be physically alive anymore, and yet still their sense of loss or our loss or not being mirrored, met, or matched still kind of plays with us in some way, finds its way into our relationships, finds its way into our work, finds its way in the way we feel about ourselves. So as silly or trite or as egocentric as it may sound, it's okay. I give you permission. I would like for you to give yourself permission to give yourself a compliment and to feel, because that is one of the biggest human threads. Is I know there's such separatism between the things that separatism in terms of economics, in terms of education, in terms of race. But there's really one race. It's the human race, and the human race entails all of these 10 emotions. There's many subcategories, but these are the basic 10, and there's even more of a basic 4. So in that regard, I want to kind of close up a little bit, because I'd like to open up a little bit in terms of questions. I'm sure there may be a few. I don't mind if they're just, industry questions or about actors' process. But I think one thing I'd like for you to ponder as well, I've asked you 3 big things. I've asked you 30-day compliment challenge, 10-10-10 challenge. Got one more. I want you to sit down and think about 10 things that make you different, special, or unique. What are the 10 things you know about yourself that make you different, special, or unique from anybody else? Not in an arrogant way, but I can say it. One of my things is I'm very generous. I don't keep track. I don't keep score. I just give. I give without any condition that somebody may. Now, mind you, I've been in situations where I've given and it's never been mirrored, met, or matched. So then I go, is it really worthwhile to share this kind of information or this knowledge or this experience or this relationship with someone that's not matching it or mirroring it? But one of my 10 things is that I'm generous in spirit. Recently, I started doing my on-camera workouts, and one of the most interesting things that I kind of pat myself on the back a little bit, I came up with this idea that, an actor Q&A. So every Friday I invite an actor in for a 2-hour period of time, and we just talk to each other about their process and their journey and the things that they're doing. But then I ask people to make a $25 donation for the 2 hours of this information, which some of these Q&As, I have like 50 of them. I've had Ed Asner, who is icon. I've had Michael Chiklis, Golden Globe, Emmy-winning actor. I've had amazing guests. I just had John Cameron Mitchell, who's you may not know who he is from Hedwig and the Angry Inch or director of the movie Rabbit Hole, but I can tell you a year from now, you will know exactly who John Cameron Mitchell is, because he's going to play probably the most well-known iconic character from 2020, and it's not Donald Trump. So my point on that is that I turn these little 2-hour conversations of sharing information and sharing knowledge into charity. And in the 10 months that I've done it, we've raised over $13,000 for charity. So it's been this thing where we're sharing information and we're sharing knowledge with each other on Zoom. People are taking notes and they have final takeaways of things. And we then turn that into a fundraising link. So we're able to, and this is charities that are like all over the world. Like next week will be the Wounded Warriors. This week is a thing called Burritos Over Bombs, which is a food bank in Mexico City. We've done it for LGBTQ community. We've done it for the Actors Fund. We've done it for cancer. We've done it for, Children's Hospital. We've, you name it. We've, 50 different charities. So being able to come up with kind of sharing information and sharing knowledge, but then having it have a give back to a charity. It's been remarkable. And Bill, I don't know if we're able to do this, but I'd love to try, we'll go into question and answer at this point, but one of the things that we do in my workouts, and I'd love to see if we can try to do it so that I can kind of at least get a sense of who everybody is here, is at the end of all my workouts, I've been doing these on-camera workouts, teaching people how to be more comfortable and understanding the frame. And we can talk a little bit about that because we have little time. But the point is that when I'm in front of a camera, I give it a big old hug because this is my world. So if you ever do presentations and you need to get in front of people, just remember that you're in a context of a frame. So the things that you deal with or see are all on the other side of the camera. I liken it to I have a picture on the other side of I'll show you my computer. On the wall here, I have my wall, my frame, and I have my notes. And so if you're ever going to do presentations, I recommend that you get to understand this is your frame. Your world is within your arms, is the world that's on the other side of this camera. But I wanted to open up the floor to any particular questions anybody might have. But usually what we do, Bill, at the end of my my workouts is we ask people to go around and say, what is your one takeaway of all the things you heard in my speech? What's the one thing that kind of sticks out? If you feel comfortable and people want to do that, I think it's a great way, because I think any endeavor that we do, it's good to think about what's the thing that we really heard. Of all the things you heard, what's that one thing that sticks with you? And sometimes people may have say the thing that you heard, but maybe there's something else. It's up to you if you want to do that, or if we have time, or we can stay to questions. I want to respect the time you have, so I'll let you take it from here.
Right. Hey, man, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very inspirational. As with any talk, you have people that don't understand the correlation of why we put a presentation in, and you have many more that completely are tied into it. And we've had both on the chat window, but mostly the positive comments that have come back about life in general, and the positive way, the inspiration you've offered us today is very much appreciated. Since I know you so well, we only have about 12 minutes, but we go into lunch. But since I know you so well, I want to let people know that James does a lot of reading with his Buddhist philosophies on life, on relationships, on people in general. Obviously, it helps him in his acting career, but it helps him with his students and with his relationships in his life, and to get over some of the past traumas he's had, as he mentioned, that we need to all resolve at a certain point in time. So, James, I would love to ask you to comment on that, but I'd also like to ask you, what do you do with negative people? As perfusionists or medical people, we always come across negative people in our lives. You do as well in the acting world. And I appreciate, because I've done acting and I'm a perfusionist, I appreciate that reciprocity, that relationship.
I figured you'd understand the bridge between the two.
It's more than I ever expected.
Yeah, I think the one to speak to, I've been a Buddhist for well over 30 years. It's a form of Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism. I chant the words Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which I can give you literal translation to. But it's like if I gave you the literal translation of love, Yes, everybody's have a particular experience of it. It's an experiential practice rather than a philosophical or ideological. It's you experience it. But one of the ways in which that I can tell you in terms of Buddhism's been helpful is that on a daily basis, as I've talked to you before, I check into where my condition of life is in the beginning of the day. I chant in the morning and in the evening to check into where I'm at, so that I'm not easily moved or swayed. I may start out, my condition of life may start out in a real positive way in the beginning of the day or not. And by the end of the day, I'm checking in again before I move on to the next day. And the point of that is that whatever we need to do to continue having a high condition of life so that we're not easily swayed or influenced, as you pointed out, by negative people. And to stay present and focused on the task. So that means you have to check in with where you're at before you kind of walk into a room. If you're coming in with things and they're coming in, that's where you're going to be butting heads. So I think the way in which is whatever you do in your everyday life to increase your, as I said, your ability to relax, focus, and concentrate, all three of those things are encompassed. But be mindful of where your condition of life is. This is why I know people will try to stay away and shy from your emotional life, and I think that's a huge mistake, because that's where we kind of run into problems in terms of dealing with negative people. And I've just finished having probably one of the most horrific experiences with the director on this television series, of which I've never encountered anybody like this before. And now, mind you, her circumstances that she was behind schedule and totally destroyed, messed up the, cost the production $30,000 to $50,000 that day. So her mindset of her failure had a clearly, blurred our ability to have a communication between actor and director. But it was a horrific, awful experience, and I just let her vent her things, and I listened, and I did. This is an interesting thing for anyone who's done couples therapy. I'm big on the repeating, that whole repetition exercise I told you about. It's like, oh, Bill's like, yeah, I'm really upset about blah, blah, blah. Bill, I hear that you're upset about X, Y, Z. Is there a way in which that I can help and resolve that for you? Repeat what the person's saying. I was really angry when you did blah, blah, blah. Repeat exactly what they said. I heard you say, right? This is what we do with directors, right? The director gives me a direction, and if I get a note or adjustment in an audition, director will give me a note or adjustment. It's like, I'll take a second. I go, I heard you say you'd like this character to be a little less angry and maybe a little bit more sad. Is that correct? Did I get that right? So just repeat exactly what they're saying. What it does is it diffuses whatever hostility, anger that's there. And that it validates that you actually heard what they said because you repeat it verbatim. Don't add another additional word. Any couples therapy person will tell you, trust me on that one. Don't add your slant on how you heard it, because that's not what was said. That's not how you heard it. So repeat. I think the smartest thing is to really, and as I said, we're all coming into various different situations. Read the room. If you're in touch with your emotional life, it's going to be so much easier for you to be able to see, assess, and evaluate what the real situation is. What the needs of the patient. You can see the patient is suffering or getting information that they're reluctant, and someone's trying to convince them to do. You're read the room, find a way in which to serve. It makes a joke of serving many masters. Being able, and I'm on set and I have to serve many different people. I have the light guy, the sound guy, the camera operator. I have a director behind a monitor. I have many people I have to serve in order for us to collaborate. It's about collaboration, and you have to understand what is your part of the street? What is your part of this collaboration? And one of which is to make sure that I'm not bringing anything in that hinders and prohibits the ability to stay present in this situation.
Beautiful. I think Susan's going to bring up some of the takeaways.
Okay.
Yeah, we had Carter had asked everybody one takeaway that we all have here.
Yeah, what's our takeaways? Let's hear them.
Yeah, and I think it's really important how you define our social and physical distancing and stuff too. I think we've done a lot of that social distancing.
We've done plenty of we don't need any more social distancing. We have to be socially connected to each other.
Yes,
The
I
social
think that's really,
distancing of family members and cutting them off and unfriending people, this has got to stop. We're not going to get anywhere, and we're not going to progress as humans, period.
and even on the
so-
pressures that we put upon ourselves
Yes,
and on some
exactly.
of our family members, like you're
Physical
talking with your
distancing is
son.
it. It's about physical distancing, absolutely. Social distancing, we have to start reaching out, calling those people, and reconnecting to them. I agree.
Kelly
Some
is-
takeaways. I'd love to hear them.
Okay. Kelly had mentioned one about having an open heart and be present. I think
Yeah.
that's very powerful.
Yep.
And Haas had said, be humble and look out for each other. I think that's really important also.
Yeah,
Very
I know there are certain folks, and I understand where it comes from, but I don't think this is an every man for himself situation when we all live on one planet.
Right.
I don't, wherever people fall in terms of their ideology, I do think we're all in this together, especially when it comes to having the planet
Mhm.
and how we deal with it and the people that are on it. So I feel rather than every man for himself, I got mine and they're taking mine, and this is, we're all in this together. So let's figure out a way in which that we can kind of be mindful and respectful of each other's differences as well. I mean, I've just finished, I did a film that with a group of people that I 100% vehemently, totally disagree with politically, but I can create art with them, because I think it's a sad commentary when we can't create a piece of art even though we don't necessarily agree with each other politically. It's an important distinction. So I think, yeah, we're all in this together. Not every man for himself. I think that's anytime we start looking in that way, we make very short-sighted decisions about the human race. And I have children. I want this planet to be there for them. So we're all in this together. You have some other ones?
Yeah. Tina Leverance also said that change always starts within oneself.
Yes.
Very powerful.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really looking for that big change, that's a, we don't coin this one, but on the Buddhist end, it's like world peace starts with you. If you don't have peace within your own heart and your mind and how you deal with your family and your situation, that if you don't have that, then you're going out and you're looking at the world in a whole different perspective. That's why condition of life is important, and how you maintain a high condition of life, because you can walk out that door and it's the same street. It's the same. I have the same construction going on in Louisiana since August. They still haven't done. But my condition of life is when I walk out that door, what's my perspective and viewpoint on that? I come out sometimes and it angers me to know, and I come like, oh, I really love my neighborhood. That's my condition of life. It's still the same place. It's that it is a mindset is very much a part of that. So whatever you do to keep that condition of life so that your perspective and point of view is present, and be mindful that, okay, today, today I'm really angry about how they still haven't fixed my block. Every other street, but not my block, Any other takeaways from today?
Absolutely. We have them rolling in here.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Leo Carr says, be a positive mirror to yourself and to your team.
Yeah.
And then Josh Blessing, this is a great one. Read the room.
Read the room, man.
Uh-huh.
Woo, take that's for everybody.
And that is totally applicable in our profession.
100%. Read the room, bro. Don't come in with a big old agenda, man. Just take a second and just get some eye contact. What's the energy, man? Read the room. It's a good one. What else?
Sean Devereaux says, my biggest takeaway is to remember to be present.
Yes.
Everyone's life is busy, and smart technology makes us always look to the future. We should take time each day to remain present in the moment. Very good. Sandra Mohammed says, accept yourself and be open to others.
I am enough as I am.
Rita says, be the solution, not the problem. I've heard that so many times. Paul
I bet.
would always say that.
Exactly. Don't bring in, look, everybody's got problems. Don't bring in more problems.
That's right.
Come in and solve some problems, please.
Trying to see what other ones here. Michael Treat, he says, this has been refreshing, authentic, and really thought-provoking. Thank you very much.
It's 10 hours.
Awesome. We are good, right? Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, man. Yeah, James, we've heard messages similar to it to some with some of our speakers, but the messenger, and you are the messenger. And I've been fortunate to have taken some of my acting classes with you, as well as some friendship talks. And I knew you'd be the right person to help us with our lifestyles and our ongoings and our jobs, for that matter. There's a lot of parallels that people will be able to take
There were
away
far
from
more
this.
than I imagined when I was doing my homework. I was like, wow, this sounds very familiar to me. And I agree with you. Thanks. I like being the messenger, but it's really about the message too. So I'm just the messenger for the message, which is, we are all in this together. Read the room. You are enough as you are. And, emotion does create reality.
Yeah. Well, regardless, you're a great messenger as well as giving the
I
message.
thank you.
All right. So thank you again for your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
man.
Yep.